So part of what I want to teach you is to read and understand legislation. And obviously, because we're in labour, dealing with labour relations, labour law, we're going to look at the Labour Relations Act, which for now is the key piece of legislation. We want to get a handle on that. So to start, what I need you to do is make sure that you have a copy of the Labour Relations Act. I put one on this particular module for you, so you can download it. Now, you might want to print it. It's probably a few hundred pages long, depending on a number of things, but you don't have to. You have it as a PDF. I need to tell you also, you can buy these legislation. I've got a copy here. It's a nice little copy, which is one of the reasons I said to you, don't talk about pages because you'll get it completely wrong. Okay, so the main thing is, before you do this exercise, before you go through this together with me, you need to have a copy of the Act. All right, so now I'm going to assume that you've done that. You've got one, and you. Let me put it this way: if you don't have one, then there's no purpose of doing this particular module. All right, so right. So let's have a look at the Labour Relations Act, and what I want to teach you is how it's constructed. So how does that work? Well, if you go to the contents, and I'm going to just go to the contents in my little version of it, that's what I want you to do. Easiest way to see what's in an act is to look at the contents. Now, I've said that this particular legislation has been very well constructed in terms of the way that it's put together. And now that's what I'm going to show you now. All right. So we look at the contents, or arrangements of sections, as it says. And you'll see, if you just skim through that, you have chapter 1 and then chapter 2, a little bit confusing. At least in my copy, it might be the same in yours. It says chapter 2, and there's two little L's or I, or whatever it is there. Unfortunately, they use Roman, one of the weaknesses, the sort of Roman, old-fashioned Roman numbering here. So those two little things means 2. In chapter 3 is 3, 4, very confusing, 1V, 5V, 6V1, etc. 10 is X. Okay, all a little bit. Anyway, you will get used to that. Not a big deal. All right, but so if you have a look at the Act, you go chapter 2. I'm looking at how it's put together. Chapter 3 says collective bargaining, and then underneath that it says Part A, organizational rights. Underneath that, Part B, collective agreements. Part C, bargaining councils. Part D, bargaining councils and public service. Part E, statutory councils. Part F, okay, general provisions. And then Chapter 5, strikes and lockout. So what I want you just to see is how the Act is constructed. All the way through, if you go over and over, right to, chapter 7, dispute resolution. As I said, I'm skimming through that, and I'm just looking at like Part E, Labour Appeal Court. So do you get the idea? Like if you were looking, thinking to yourself, oh geez, I wonder a thing about Labour Appeal Court. Well, where would you find it? It's under Labour Dispute Resolution. Now, as I said to you before, the Act is constructed in a way that knows there are going to be labour disputes, and then basically tells you how that particular type of dispute will be resolved. And then also sets the forums, the Labour Court, CCMA, Labour Appeal Court, etc. So you if you have that broad understanding, you will find things about the court in that section under dispute resolution. Okay, so you get a sense of how this is put together. Now, I must just say to you, the old Act, 1956 Act, was a chamors. There was things about, they dealt with an unfair labour practice in those days. And it was, I forget what it was, but it was section like 50, 51A, 2B or something. Okay. Really almost hidden away. You had to really look for it. This has at least got this structure to it, which is what I want you to know. So what do we learn from that? Well, We have the Labour Relations Act. It has chapters, and that chapter covers a particular subject. Chapter V, that's chapter 5, workplace forums. Chapter 6, trade unions and employer organization. So it covers that subject. So you're not going to look around all over trying to, where's this thing? You're going to look for the contents and see, well, that's what it covers. So that makes it a hell of a lot easier. Some of the chapters have parts, as I've been through, part A, B, C, etc. And generally, well, those parts also cover a particular subject. So let's look at, well, maybe I should do what I've already done there. So we did chapter 3, collective bargaining. Okay, that's the whole thing of negotiating with unions around terms and conditions of employment and other matters of mutual interest. But so if you wanted to find out about collective agreements, part B, collective agreements. Okay, so that's very helpful around that. And then within the collective agreements, just to reinforce what I said just now, there is section 24, which is the heading is disputes about collective, telling you if there's a dispute, this is what you need to do. This is the process that you need to follow. And that's very helpful. It really makes reading this and understanding it together. So we know there's sections, they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 2, 2, 1, 3 sections. And then the broader thing is chapters and parts. And that's very useful. Then you need to also just know that this act contains schedules. So I'd like you to page right through to the end, the last part of the act, which is section 214. So go right through to the end of the act, and then you'll have schedule 1, establishment of bargaining council, etc. Okay, so there's schedules, and if you page after that, you'll see that there are, at least in my little version there, okay, there are these flow diagrams. The whole idea, what they're trying to show you is the flow for disputes. What do you do first, second, third, which is very, very useful and helpful. And then what I'd like you to do, because we're going to use it, is go to Schedule 8. Schedule 8. So all the way, it's numbered all the way through to Schedule 8. And that is headed Code of Good Practice Dismissal. So this is a Code of Good Practice dealing then with dismissal. So if you want to find out the procedures, etc. for dismissal, here it is. So it's part of the Act. All right. So keep that in mind. You'll see I've got a little tag on that because we refer to the Code of Good Practice dismissals a lot. So it's always useful to have that. Part of the learning that I want to get across to you is that we never learn now. Now, I'm not expecting you, like school or something, go and learn this. You're not going to learn that. You're just going to know where to find things. So please, please, please don't get in your head that you learn law by learning, sections of the Act or whatever. What we always do, we always do, we say, what is dealing with what? Okay, we go and find it, and then we read it. Every single time. You do not learn it. You do not learn it. Okay. So then we're going to deal with, to illustrate this, exercise 7, gain an overview. So take your copy. I've sort of done this already. Go through this, stop the video and go through it just to make sure that you have an understanding of what we're doing here. Right, I'm assuming that you've done that. So let's answer those questions. What's covered in Chapter 1? Purpose, application, and interpretation. Tells you that. Second question, find Chapter 3, Part A. What's the topic of this part? Organizational rights. Now, I'm not expecting you to understand what organizational rights are. All I want you to do is see what that is about. Chapter 3, Part A, Section 21. What is this section? So now I'm going chapter, part, section. It's the exercise of the rights conferred by this part. So here's my thing there. You're not learning law. You're just learning where to find things. That's the key thing. Section 4, question 4, what section of the Act deals with the right to strike? So what I'm trying to test you there is say, well, okay, we know it's about strikes, it's about the right, so where would you find that? Well, the long way is you go through the contents until you find where it deals with strikes. Now, we've already done that, and so let's just have a look at that. So the right to strike is dealt with in section 64. More correctly, section 64(1) says every employee has the right to strike, and every employer has the recourse to lock out if, but take that first part, every employee has the right to strike. That's what that section did. Good. All right. So now we go through section of the Act deals with the registration of bargaining councils. I'm not answering that. I hope you've done that. But you see how it all fit together. Maybe I should just check this. Number 6, what section of the Act tells you what dismissal means? So if you went through the Act, through the contents, you will see that, let me find it. If you went through the Act, through the contents, you'll see that chapter V111, which is 5 plus 3 is 8, chapter 8, unfair dismissal, unfair labor practice. So if you ask, where does it deal with the question of dismissal? What section of the Act tells you what dismissal means? You could potentially, because I've told you this before, that definitions are in section 213. But if you go there, it's not there. So what you do then is you look under the section where it deals with dismissal, unfair dismissal, and you'll find in section 186, very important section, what's in the title of section 186, meaning of dismissal, unfair labor practice. So that tells you, so if you read section 186(1), it says dismissal means that A, an employer has terminated B, C, etc. So there are a number of meanings of the word or the dismissal. What section of the Act deals with compensation for unfair dismissal? Well, again, the logic, I hope you see, would say, well, that's got to do with unfair dismissal. So that section must be somewhere in chapter 8 where it deals with unfair dismissal. Long way to do it is you would then page through looking for the titles until you see, and you find section 193 and 194. Section 193 says remedies for unfair dismissal, 94, limits on compensation. Okay. And then the last one, what section of the Act deals with compensation? Sorry, number 8, what section of the Act deals with the definition of the word employee? Definition 213, bang, go and find it. It tells you. All right. So that's how you would actually work through and understand and find things. That's the main thing. Don't learn law. You find what it says and then you read it. And then because we'll teach you now how to actually unpack that, how to understand it more, understand the words, and so on. So, all right, I hope this little exercise, I hope this process has helped you to get in your head. You don't learn legislation, definitely not off by heart. You become familiar with it. Okay, you know definition, section 213, bang, you go and look there. But you do not learn like what are the definition of employee. You don't learn those kind of things. You look it up.